All right, I want to come on tonight, myself and my co-host, Jacqueline Sarver. This is not going to be an interview. This is going to be a voters awareness session. So something I've started on this podcast is pass the mic. So tonight I'm going to pass the mic to my co-host, my technical director and historian here on Electra James Inspirational Talks. And she is going to be talking to us about women voters and more surrounding voting. So I'm going to get ready to fade out and I'm going to pass the mic to you, Jacqueline, and you're going to take it from here. Okay.
I'm going to take it from here. Thank you, Ms. Electra. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching, whether you're watching live now or you're going to watch it later. I'm going to give you a little bit of the history. I know I've been talking a lot about the history of women in voting, but I want you to see, I want you to get some images in your head about the struggle that women have been through. So I got myself a PowerPoint, you know, I've gotten into those PowerPoints lately. So I got myself a PowerPoint. So I'm going to have you watch it with me. All right, let's flip it on, share my screen. All right. All right. Here we go. Okay. Listen, sisters, I know that Mr. King, we've had him on Electra James Inspirational Talk many times. He said this a million times. We are better together. But I really want to embed that in your heads today, in your minds and in your hearts. We are better together. When we stand together, we can accomplish something. We don't need to stand together negatively or stand together brutally. We just need to stand together. And that's what this presentation is about tonight. So, votes for women. I want you to pay attention to the clothing as we go through this slideshow, because the clothing will give you an idea of the different times in America's history that women have had to step out and make their point known about the vote. So you can tell from the clothing that these women are wearing that we're in the late 1800s, maybe 1850, 1860. Okay. What about these ladies? Do you know who that is? Gloria Steinem on the left. I don't know who that is on the right. Her name wasn't in the credits. That is current women's rights. We are still fighting for women's rights. And that's what we're going to see tonight. We're going to see how women have banded together to accomplish things. Remember, if you watched my previous episode about some of the famous women in the women's rights movement, I talked about 3 specific women, and I talked about Sojourner Truth, and she's the one on the far left on your screen. In the middle is Susan B. Anthony, and on the right is Elizabeth Cady Stanton. These are the pioneers in women's rights. And I apologize if the pictures are a little bit blurry. They were so small. And so I had to enlarge them so you could see them. And I'm not a professional videographer, so, you know, I couldn't fix pixels and all that. One of these days I might learn how to do that, but not yet. But Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, 3 of the main pioneers of the women's rights movements. They called themselves suffragettes because they had suffered so much as women trying to be recognized as the powerhouse that they were, not recognized as equals at this point. They weren't interested in being equal with a man at this point in history. They were interested in being recognized as valid members of society. And how are we recognized as valid members of a community? By our vote, by our vote. Voting matters. The women before us fought for the right to vote. We honor them when we do what is right and vote. The women before us fought for the right to vote. We honor them when we do what is right and vote. Remember that. We are better together. I want you to be aware that it's not just Americans that have had to fight for women's rights. This is in the Sudan. These women are from the Sudan. And this is a women's rights conference, one of the first women's rights conferences they ever had, because for many, many years, their women's rights movement was underground because their lives were at stake for being pro women's rights. These are women. They weren't asking for much. They were just asking to be recognized as full citizens of their country. Oops, I passed it up too fast, but there it went. You saw my motto again. We are better together. This was a meeting. This was the suffragettes asking how long. This was in 1900. And remember when we talked before about the 19th Amendment, the women started holding women's rights movements, asking for the vote in about 1840. But it wasn't until 1919 and 1920 that they got the vote. This was about 1900. And they are asking when, because people were telling them, they were hearing platitudes. Oh, don't worry. Yes, this is on the agenda. This is on the agenda. Don't worry. But something being on the agenda doesn't mean that it's really being considered. They had to stay. They had to be vocal. They had to be seen. Were there protests like some of the ones we've seen in these days where property was destroyed and what? No, they didn't do that. They were peaceful for the most part. The media didn't always see it that way. We'll talk about that in a minute. Here's one of the marches. This is a march in New York City. And they're, I know you can't read the signs, but they're basically all holding signs that say, women need to vote, women's rights, women need to vote, women have the right to vote. Okay. This is in, which one was this? This was in like Ohio. Before that, that convention that Sojourner Truth was able to speak at, this is 1851. So, but in the winter, as you can see, with the winter clothing and the snow all over the place. But this was another women's rights convention, and the women still didn't have the right to vote. Okay, this was in London, England. This is in, I think this picture was in 1880, about 1880. And I didn't take these pictures. I also, you can call me a plagiarizer if you want, that's okay. I'm not publishing this, I'm just here to talk to you. So this was in England. Here's English women who want the right to vote. They also didn't have the right to vote at that point. We're better together. I'm going to repeat that again and again and again, because sisters, we are better together. I heard someone, they said last week or a few weeks ago, and it may have even been here on Electra Long's Inspirational Talks, I don't remember, but they made a comment about us and them. And I want you to know that we need to stop thinking about us and them, and we need to be we. We are. Not us, not them, not they. We as women are better together. We can succeed together. Right now, there are threats being made to our constitutional rights. You all know, and you're all aware that not long ago, the amendment that we know as Roe versus Wade, which was about the women's rights over their own bodies, was rescinded. And so now, my fear when that happened was that it wouldn't be long before other amendments were challenged. And sure enough, I heard today someone challenging the 19th Amendment, which is the amendment that gave women the right to vote. I've heard, I know that the challenge for the right to education is going to come in the not too distant future. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution we know as the Bill of Rights. And they're some of them are very distinct and very clear, and some of them leave room room for debate. And the reason that we've had so many additions to the Constitution, why we have more than 10 amendments, is to help clarify those 10 amendments. But all people should be considered equal. The Constitution says that. But because of the people who are reading the Constitution say, well, I don't think it says that. That's why we have to have so many amendments. But every time an amendment is made or rescinded, that opens the door for more amendments to be made and rescinded. I am afraid of the day that someone starts attacking those 10 first amendments, the Bill of Rights. Keep your eyes open, my sisters. We are better together, much better together. I just wanted to include this so you would understand that they did start having world conferences for women. This was held in Beijing, China, Beijing in 1995. That's amazing. When we think of women's rights, we tend to think of white women, right? Let's just be honest. But women's rights affect every woman, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, regardless of your nationality, regardless of your political definition, regardless. It's for everyone. And the fact that in 1995, we were able to have this conference in Beijing is evidence of that. Women in Beijing want freedom as much as women in Nebraska. Look at the clothing in this picture. This is another women's rights movement. And if you can tell that the writing, I know it's not very clear, but the writing is Arabic in this picture. These are Arab women wanting the right to vote. And if you know anything about the Middle East, there was a time when they were very liberal, and before their church and their state was taken over by their religion. And now in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, the women have no rights. They can't even drive a car without a male relative in the car with them. So yeah, their battle will continue for decades, I'm certain, decades and decades. And for these women to have had freedom for a little while and then it was taken away, I think that's the hardest bite of all. Same sort of a look, right? But this is a women's march on Washington. Do you remember the 1,000 women march? Was it 1 million? I know everyone remembers the 1 million man march on Washington, where men went to show their solidarity. Well, this is the women's march. This is where women got together in Washington and wanted our government to know and recognize that women are powerful. Women are a force to be reckoned with, but we don't have to be vicious to accomplish our means. We just don't have to do it. This is, to me, this image of these women meeting together before the White House to give proof that women deserve equal rights with men. And this was in the era of the ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, in about 1995. This is when this was, okay? This is a statue in New York. If you remember from my previous broadcast, I talked about the first women's rights movement was in Seneca Falls, New York. And this is a bronze statue grouping of that meeting in Seneca Falls. And the reason that this statue is so important is because it demonstrates that there were men who were supportive of their wives, their daughters, and their mothers wanting to have equal rights, wanting to have the right to vote. So if you noticed in the statues, there's 3 or 4 men, mostly they're women, but there are 3 or 4 men, and they're specifically purpose of this statute is to give proof and give evidence that not every man was against women voting. A lot of men, most men who honored their wives, honored their mothers, understood that these women should be full citizens of the United States. They should be full citizens and have all the rights of citizens. This is another march. This is Washington. Very peaceful march. That's the thing we need to remember. It serves no purpose to burn buildings and throw rocks. All people are going to remember is that you burn buildings and threw rocks. But peaceful demonstration. Showing your power by your might instead of by your fists. We are better together. Remember, sisters, we are better together. Better together. This is when they were rallying to have a meeting for women to come in and talk about why we need the vote, why they needed the vote, because realize that a lot of women were scared to show their face about it at that time. They were scared because, their husbands and their bosses and just average people on the street and the media. Oh, the media was awful. They talked about the suffragettes like they were women who abandoned their children, women who beat policemen. I have some pictures. I'll show you. Oh, I just thought this one was kind of cute. She's supposed to be Lady Liberty. And if you can see all the water, okay, the fire department was not firing, but shooting a water hose at the crowd. But she stood firm. She stood there as Lady Liberty. Okay. This was the opening of the Seneca Falls suffrage, the first women's rights meeting in Seneca Falls, New York. And so this is the women. And if you notice, academics, and there are a few men, like I said, it's a little blurry and fuzzy because I had to increase the size so we could see it at all. But this is about getting these women who are afraid to come out to open their hearts and their minds and come to this meeting and learn why women needed the vote. We're better together. We're better together. Better together. Okay, here we have. This is a group of women, and it didn't even define who all the women were. Although I'll tell you that this woman in the front with the white hair, kind of in the middle, that's Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Susan B. Anthony was not here at this convention. If you remember the story I told in the previous podcast, is because she was a teacher, and she was told that if she attended this meeting, she would not only lose her job, but would be blacklisted and not able to work anywhere as a school teacher anymore. So she couldn't afford to do that. She had a family, her father, she never married, but she had her father and others to feed. So she could not afford to be blacklisted. Although she did step out and was very vocal for women's rights and women's rights. She's holding a sign to ask freedom. Ask of freedom. For women is not a crime. For women to ask for freedom is not a crime. Suffrage prisoners should not be treated as criminals. Women who came to suffrage meetings or walked in some of these very sedate marches were arrested and put in jail and treated as common criminals. Remember in my previous broadcast, me telling you that Susan B. Anthony was arrested and fined $100. She had to give $100 fine before she could get out of jail. And in that day and age, when she was arrested and during this time, $100 is equivalent to about $3,000 for us today. So she was fined what approximates to $3,000. Let me ask you a question. Could you lay your hands right now on $3,000? I couldn't. I couldn't do it. If I was arrested because I wanted to vote, or because I wanted to buy my own groceries or open my own business, or I wanted to um, walk openly as a free woman down the street, regardless of the color of my skin, I wouldn't have $3,000 to pay as a fine to get out of jail. I wouldn't. I'd have to sit there. I would have to suffer and be treated as a criminal, although all I did was want to be recognized as a citizen of the United States. These are women, and what they're holding in their hands are ballots. This is in 1920. They are holding ballots. These are women preparing to go in for the very first time and vote. Those are ballots in their hands. They're going to go cast their ballots and vote. We are better together. We are better together. This is in the middle of the group here. This man sitting in the middle, that's Woodrow Wilson. Okay, the president at the time that the 19th Amendment was signed. And we have Sojourner Truth. She's like standing to the left of the woman in the wheelchair. The one in the wheelchair is Elizabeth Cady Stanton. We've got Sojourner Truth. We've got women, if you see, from India who are there. We've got women from these women on the far right in the white, they're from Ireland. And of course, we've got many, many Americans there. That is the opening day of women's right to vote. Okay. Is this the one that's in Dublin? This is in London. This is in London. These are women who are lining up to go into a National Women's Convention to learn about the vote. And if you can see over here on the far left, we've got the English bobbies watching and waiting to see what happens. Yes. This is in New York. This is a husband who's having his wife arrested for wanting to participate in the Women's Rights Convention. A husband having his wife arrested for wanting to participate in the Women's Rights Convention, having his wife arrested because she wants to be a full citizen of. Hear me now. That's what she wants. She just wants to be a full citizen of the United States. She's been arrested. This is basically to depict how the media at the time, media is so powerful, and we should know that now. We recognize that now because of all the things that have happened in our country over the last 4 years. That however the media feels, that's how a lot of people are going to feel, because they see they don't research the topic for them. This is actually a London crowd, because you see their London bobbies with their bobbies hats, and it shows women beating up these bobbies, and the bobbies trying to subdue the women, but the women are just too rakish for them. No, they tried to put off an image that suffragettes, women who want the vote, are manly, are brutes, women who abuse their children, women who cheat on their husbands. They said anything that they wanted to and didn't have to verify the truth of it because no one asked. Okay, we are better together. We're better than that. We're better together. And thankfully, we have the right to be heard, and we, over social media, have the right to be heard in our own voices instead of somebody else's voices over the paper, over a news channel. We can be heard ourselves. Get out and vote. We are better together. We're better together. This is, which one was this? Sorry, I lost my notes. Obviously, it's in the United States. And I believe that this is when the 19th Amendment was passed. No, I remember now. This is the one that when it was ratified in 1920. because it was passed in 1919, but not ratified until 1920. And so this is 1920, and they're standing tall, holding the American flag. And see, that's a copy of the 19th Amendment they've got attached. I just included this. I'm sorry, it's so blurry, but this is the handout that they had at the Seneca Falls meeting, and that they handed out these flyers to many women on the street. This is what they had, and they were this is Lady Liberty in the middle, and they're talking about the law, the majesty of the law. They're talking about those first 10 commandments. I'm sorry, those first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and that the Bill of Rights does not specifically say that women can vote. It's just an assumption by men. So what they're talking about here is that women are equal citizens. Okay. Oh, this is a terrible story. I have to tell you that sometimes women can, just like men do stupid things, sometimes women do too. There was this woman who was very active in the women's rights movement in the United Kingdom, in London, and one of a magistrate or a member of parliament who was very vocally a vocal opponent of women's rights was racing in this derby, this horse race this day. And this woman decided to jump out of the stands and run in front of his galloping horse. And, these horses are going, 40, 50 miles an hour. They can't stop on a dime, and runs out in front of this horse that this man was riding on to get his attention. And she got his attention, all right. She got his attention because he was trampled. Don't do stupid stuff. Okay, listen to me. What we need to do is get out and vote and take people. If you have people who don't have transportation, can't get to a voting place, take them. You can give these people a ride to go vote. And you know what? There are laws about how many people you can take to get to go vote. Ridiculous. But if you've got a neighbor who doesn't drive and she's shut in, ask her, do you need to have a ride to go vote? And just so you know, I don't need a ride. I'm registered to vote by me. So I'm okay. Look at the clothes. Look at the outfits here. What is the period that this was in? You know that this was in the 1850s, 1860s. Look at the outfits. They're still marching for freedom, marching to be considered citizens, full citizens of the United States. That's what they want. Citizens vote. And as full citizens, they have much more standing in the community. Okay. I think I showed you this picture twice. This is standing in front of the White House on the very first women's march to the White House. And these are the women holding the banners at the beginning of that one. So this is 1840, 1843. I think this is actually 1840. I know I keep showing you this slide over and over again. We are better together, better together, better together. But sisters, we are better together. Let's help each other. Let's give each other strength. Let's bind ourselves together and make a difference in this upcoming election. Let's make a difference. Let's get the people that we want in office in office. Let's not be blasé about it. Let's not say, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. Oh, my vote won't. Oh. Every time you say that, every time you say my vote doesn't count, and you say, I'm just not going to bother, you've basically given a vote to someone who shouldn't have it. You've given away your vote by not voting. So please, we are better together. Get out there and vote. Okay. This is in Dublin, Ireland. This was a women's rights movement, women's rights meeting, gathering that did get out of control because there were too many women trying to get in too little space. And if you can see that, this woman got knocked down and hurt, and there's some police, guarding some of them, taking them away. But the reason I wanted to show you this is evidence. This is all over the world, sisters. This isn't just us here in the United States. This is all over the world. And yes, these are old photographs of older times, but I've shown you just as many photographs of modern times. It matters. The vote matters. Our standing as citizens of our countries matter. And what do citizens do? They vote. Citizens vote. Okay. This is Glasgow, Scotland. Same time period. Same basic time period. And one of the things, this was the same image of these women. There was another picture of them taken from another angle where, I mean, here they may look to us sharp and strict and, with those big old hats, but they were dressed as standard women of the day who were, appearing in public. And some media took pictures of this from another direction, saying that they were showing their backs to law. That's not true. You should be careful about what images are presented to you by the media and what you believe. Sisters, do your own research. There's a million ways to do your own research. And the best way is just to get on the internet and start asking questions. Don't believe what someone tells you. You don't even have to believe what I tell you. Get on the internet and search. Reach out and discover what difference a woman's vote can make in any election. Okay, this was a media representation. And what it's supposed to represent here is how standoffish and mean these the suffragettes, women who wanted the vote. Here's one carrying a stick and she's hitting one. And here's the police, carrying this woman away. And here's this woman, she's been trampled. This is the kind of images that the media was portraying at that time to get women who hadn't really decided or who were afraid to play upon their fears. Research for yourself, people. Look at what laws, what the political stands are of the people who are running for offices around you, and vote your conscience. Don't vote what someone else tells you to vote. Vote your conscience, no matter what. We are better together. Better, 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 better together. Please remember that. This is another march. And if you notice from the dresses, this is a little bit more modern. This is about, I think this was in 1900, getting closer to 1900, 1910, if I remember correctly. And notice how much more respectful the crowd is of the women who are marching. Because by this point, many states have started to already ratify women's rights to vote. And many states already recognize that women were equal citizens, but not all states. Not my state. I'm sorry. Okay, this is a voting location. These are women actually voting for the very first. See how dressed up they got to come vote? I mean, we show up in our pajama bottoms and t-shirts, but no, look how dressed up they got to come vote, because this is the very first time that these women got to vote in their life. I just had to throw this in there because guess what? This is myself and Miss Electra James. We're standing together in this. We want to stand with you. We are better together. What do you think? What time period is this? 1990s. 1990s. This is equal rights. This is the time of the equal rights. Roe versus Wade. But these are women who wanted to be recognized as full citizens of the United States. They marched, but they marched peacefully as a general rule. I have this picture twice, Voting booth. Here we go. Sisters, women weren't given the vote. They took it. And right now, I heard, now I haven't researched it myself, but I heard that there is a representative in one of the northern states who is actually saying that we should repeal the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment is the amendment that gave women the right to vote. I cannot believe in our day and age, in our time, that there's anyone who would think so little of women. Any man would think so little of women that he would say, they don't need to vote. Why do women need to vote? Because we are citizens of this country. And as citizens of this country, we have a right to say. And how do we make our voices heard? We make our voices heard through our vote. So, sisters, you know what I'm going to say? Better together. Better together. Please get out there and vote. Please get out there and vote. October 24th, the beginning of early voting. November 8th, I believe it is, the first day is the day to vote in person, is actual voting day. Please get out there and vote. So, Electra, are you with me? I'm going to invite Miss Electra James to come back on. Stop sharing my screen. I want to talk to you about being present in your situation. There are so many things that are happening in the world today. And if you're not present, then you can't make a change. Hi, Electra.
Hey.
I talked and talked until
you did a wonderful job on this voters awareness, and I like your seriousness about it, and I believe that everybody that see this video, they're going to receive that education that is needed about where women come from. I continue to say this, and I will always say this. We are in the fight of our lives because
that is so true.
You know, sometimes this is just me. I feel like we do not take things serious enough. We're doing too much, and we're not paying attention to that elephant in the room that is saying, so true. I'm gonna take this from you with you looking at me. Because what happens is just like the rich, they get the poor fighting against each other, and all the time they've got what they got, and they're taking what we have, the little bit that we have, because we get so busy with the name calling and the putting each other down. And we talk about people we don't even know. And we run around here talking about we hate people we don't even know. And that just may be the person that has been put in place to help out. But we kill them, we kill their character. We say things that they are not true, and we don't have any facts about what we're saying. And so I want to say to you on tonight, you did a magnificent job, and just breaking things down. And I do believe we're at a point during this midterm election leading up, first day of early voting starts up on October 24th. Make a plan to get out there. Get out there during that early voting periods between October 24th and November 8th. All of that is early voting. My prayer is that women will flood these streets, get into these polls and say, no, y'all will not take away my rights. Because I got some young women coming up behind me that need for me to fight today. That's right. And if you get the early voting out of the way, you can come out there, help get some people to the polls on November 8th. I don't have anything against anybody just, living life to the fullest how they want to. I mean, like, I I'm just the kind of person, my family knows it, friends of mine know it. You know, Jack, I'm passionate about voting because these
I
laws
understand.
are either going to change for the better or the worse. Just because you
That's right.
choose to sit down and throw your vote, that all you're doing now, you're giving a person that would have had one vote, you're giving them two votes. And
That's right.
Anytime somebody that trying to take something from you, people take things that are valuable, and a vote is valuable. But I don't want
Vote
to
is
take
valuable.
away from the awareness session on tonight. I really don't, and I believe you've said so much that people can now let it sink in and just think about it. And let's get this session posted as soon as you can get it cleaned up and get it out there. Because
We're gonna have to post the recording because YouTube never came on.
okay.
It blacked us out.
Okay.
So,
okay. Well, we'll just go that route. It is recording.
and we know how to do that.
Yes.
So we've learned how to do all this kind of stuff. So we'll do it. Yeah.
Okay. All right then.
All right. Night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.